and welcome to Winning Daily Podcast. We're here for March the 24th. We got a full slate of stuff for you to bet on. We got tons of picks in the Miami Open, both the women's and the men's side. In tennis, we got Soccer World Cup qualifying. We got a handful of bets there. We got some NBA games, and of course, we have some women's NCAA tournament games to bet on. So, a full slate of stuff, not necessarily traditional stuff, but we got a whole heap of stuff to go with today. So let's start out with the Miami Open, probably one of the best tournaments that isn't one of the major tournaments in the U.S. Open, Australian, and French, and Wimbledon. So this is a big-time tournament. A lot of big-time names are down here. So let's get into some of the betting. Let's start on the women's side. We're going to go with Sloane Stephens, who's had a real struggle to the year so far, but we think she'll be much better at home today in Miami, playing on home soil. She usually plays well in these American hard courts, so we're going to ride Sloane Stephens plus 2.5, minus 105 versus Oseen Doden. Really like Sloane Stephens here, plus the 2.5, minus 105, despite her struggles on the year so far. We're going to go with Haley Baptiste, minus 140 versus Kristen Kova. Really like Haley Baptiste. Another one where I like her on the hard courts in America. And we're going to go with the same theory here in Storm Sanders. Now, she's an underdog here. She's getting 3.5 games, minus the 120. So we really like Storm Sanders, plus the 3.5, minus 120 versus Elizabeth Cotacito. And lastly, we're going to go with the Chinese Saza Zhang, plus 1.5, plus 105 versus Fiona Ferro. We really like the way Zhang was playing in the Mexican Open about a week ago. We took her a couple times. We're going to keep riding her here in the Miami Open. All right, we got a handful of guys on the men's side. We're going to go on the ATP Tour. We're going to go with Dennis Kudla, plus 3.5, plus 105 versus Jeremy Chardet. Really like the American here over the Frenchman. Steve Johnson, plus 100 versus Yannick Hefferman. We've been taking Yannick. He's had a really good season over in Europe. He's over here in America. We'll see if he likes these hard courts as much as he liked the indoor hard courts in Europe. I think he'll struggle a little bit, so I give Steve Johnson a little bit of a nod here at plus 100. We're going to go with James Duckworth, minus the 155 versus Mitja Servi. This isn't Alexander. This is Mitja, the brother, so he's not quite as good. We like James Duckworth, especially on these Miami hard courts at minus 155. And lastly, we're going to go with Emilio Nava, plus 4.5, minus 140 versus Lloyd Harris. Emilio Nava, really good on these courts. Should be able to at least cover this line here at plus 4.5, minus 140. All right, let's move on to some Soccer World Cup qualifying. We have some fun bets here. Let's see what we got. We're going to start out with Slovenia, plus a 220, draw no bet versus Croatia. Croatia really has been very hot and cold since their World Cup run in Russia. They just haven't looked quite right, and I think Slovenia could give them a game here, especially this up in World Cup qualifying. So the more likelihood is this is probably a draw, but we like the value getting plus 220 and then a push if there is a draw here with Slovenia. Next up, we're going to go with João Felix to score, Portugal to win, minus 135 versus Azerbaijan. Really like this bet here. Portugal should cruise in this game and pretty much pick their own score. João Felix, who has I don't know if it's struggled at Atletico Madrid, but the match has not seemingly been great. They can't seem to find a way to get João Felix in the flow, and Atletico Madrid can't seem to break how they play. This is a way for João Felix to really show what kind of offensive player he is. So I think he gets a goal here versus Azerbaijan, and I think Portugal win pretty easy. And for this price at minus 135, you aren't going to find anything better Portugal versus Azerbaijan. Next up, we're going to go with a really fun one. We were looking for ways to get Erling Haaland and multiple goals and Norway to win, but everything was so lopsided here. We're going to go the other way. We're going to take Gibraltar plus 5, minus 190 versus Norway. So Gibraltar, of course, really, really terrible. But Norway, other than Erling Haaland, does not have a really great team. Can they cover a 5-goal line? I don't know. So I'm going to take Gibraltar here, plus a 5, minus 190. It seems like there's a little bit of value there. All right, lastly, 2 pretty good games in the World Cup qualifying. We're going to go with France. Minus 115 to win nil versus the Ukraine. France, one of the best defensive teams in Europe and really in the world, should be able to hold a Ukraine team who does struggle to score at times and should be able to win this game pretty easy. So France minus 115 to win nil. And next we're going with Belgium versus Wales. Both teams scores plus 130. I think Belgium probably puts this game away pretty early, but I do look for Wales, who does have a pretty solid front line up there to be able to score a goal or two here versus a Belgium defense, which is sometimes pretty hot and cold. So Belgium, Wales, both teams to score plus 130. Okay, those are our World Cup qualifying bets. Let's go into the NBA. We got 3 picks today. Riding all favorites today, so that can never be a great thing. But Denver, who just dismantled Orlando, I look for him to go down to Tampa and take down the Toronto Raptors pretty easy, too. Toronto's really sort of struggled here, and Denver -2 should be able to handle that one pretty easy. Next up, we're riding the Pacers, who have seemed to found their groove with Karis LeVert here. I look for them to dominate the Pistons and cover that -6. It's a little bit high for my liking, but I think the Pacers cruise in this one and dominate the Detroit Pistons. And lastly, we're going to go with the Milwaukee Bucks -5 versus the Boston Celtics. Really like this. The Bucks seem to be finding their rhythm and groove and starting to kill teams much like they've done the past couple of years. Their team's at full strength right now, and Boston really just seems to struggle. And I think Milwaukee should be able to handle them pretty easy, even with a -5 on the Milwaukee Bucks. Really like the Bucks here. All right, we got 4 picks in the women's tournament before we get to the Sweet 16, last of the round 2. We're going to start out with the Georgia Bulldogs +3 versus the Oregon Ducks. I really think this Georgia team is much better than the Ducks. The Ducks are here really on name only. They really struggled all season long. I think this Georgia team should be able to easily outplay them, so I think the +3 is a gift. Next, we're going with Missouri State -10 versus Wright State. This is just a 15 seed. They played pretty well in their first game, but I think Missouri State will be able to shut them down defensively and handle them pretty easy, so I like that -10. Louisville -7 versus Northwestern. I think Louisville might be a sneaky, probably one of the better teams in this tournament, and I think they'll just handle Northwestern really easy here. So I like that -7. And lastly, we're going to go with A&M. Should they have lost their first round game? Maybe so, but I look for them to regroup here. A&M has always been a little bit of a feast or famine team, so if we get the feast here, that -3 versus Iowa State, they should cover pretty quickly. So I really like that. That's our picks for the day. Be sure to come back tomorrow for the Winning Daily podcast. Be sure to find us on greenlightnetwork.org, Greenlight Network on Facebook and YouTube. You can find me, GLN Champ 5, on Twitter and Instagram. That's our show, and we're out.